People get depressed, I think, for different reasons. Sometimes people get depressed because they have something bad that happens to them, like a breakup, or maybe they lose a bunch of money in business, or they lose a family member. My depression wasn't like that. There really wasn't anything I could pinpoint and say, that was it. That's what started my depression. It was just always there. I lived with it pretty much my whole life. As far back as I can remember, it was kind of like a black cloud that just followed me everywhere I went. And I didn't know why it was there. I just knew that it was there. And I found various ways of coping with it over the years. Saw some therapists here and there. Was really conscious about the way I ate. I exercised. And those things helped, but the momentum of it just built and built and built to where it finally got to a point that I was ready to end my life. And I was literally on a balcony looking over the edge, trying to figure out where I could land without hurting anybody below. And just so happened my phone rang at that time, and it was my wife, and I answered the phone, and as usual, she was very bubbly and bright and cheerful, and she asked me if I was excited about the conference. I was in Florida for a sales conference, and I think I told her, no, it's just another conference. I don't really care, blah, blah, blah. They're all the same. And she said, well, you've never really been to one like this before, so get your mind right, stay positive, go down there, and maybe you're going to learn something that will change things for you. Now, she was talking about my business. She wasn't talking about my depression. I told her I would go down to the conference, and so I did. And it was like the universe talking to me. The keynote speaker at the conference was Michael Phelps. And what he talked about the most was his battle with depression. I mean, that's why I said it was like the universe talking to me. Here I was, a toe over the line at the very far end of depression, and here is a guy that is one of my idols talking about his fight with depression. And I had no idea that that was something that he went through. And I just remember sitting there thinking, what does he have to be depressed about? And that's kind of when my light bulb came on, because if somebody like that can battle with depression, he said he locked himself in his room for 4 days and was thinking about committing suicide. And if something like that can happen to Michael Phelps, well, then nobody is immune from it. Somebody asked, if you know somebody that's going through depression, what's the best advice you can give? And Michael Phelps says, you got to communicate about it. You have to talk to somebody. So I took Michael Phelps' advice, and the very first thing I did when I got back home from that conference was I sought out a therapist. That therapist just wasn't the person that I was looking for, because the very first thing she did was try to prescribe me medication. She wanted me to take something for depression. She wanted me to take something for anxiety. And I just remember walking out of that appointment thinking, there has got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to cure depression that doesn't involve taking pills. So I immersed myself in research. I read everything I could get my hands on. I interviewed some people I knew that were coping with depression, people that I knew well, people that I respected, people that I knew would give me the straight story about what they were going through. I remember looking through clinical studies. I looked over hundreds of clinical studies. And over the course of that year, watching documentaries, talking to people, reading all of this information, I started to see a pattern. And what I saw is that there actually is a way to beat depression that doesn't involve treating the symptoms. And that's what medication does. Medication is all about treating the symptoms of depression. The pattern that I saw was not about trying to suppress symptoms. It was about really getting to the root of where depression comes from, pulling that root out and putting measures in place to make sure that it doesn't come back. And so I put to practice everything that I found. And here we are, more than a year and a half later, and over the past 19 months, I haven't had one single symptom of depression, not one. So here I am, a person who's gone from the very farthest end of depression, where I was thinking about ending my own life, to being here now today, being absolutely free and clear of any and all symptoms of depression. So I know the way through. And that's really what my inspiration was to write this book, to give people a step-by-step approach to beating depression that doesn't rely on medication, and that takes all of that year of research that I had to do and boils it down to less than 100 pages in a very practical manner, so that people know what they need to do to put depression behind. So what my book focuses on is living your life in such a way that you let that energy flow through you freely without obstruction. It's about the 9 most important things you can do to let your well-being flow. And when your well-being is flowing at maximum capacity, it is energetically impossible for you to be in a depressed state, because again, depression isn't a thing, it's a state. Right? So we're going to avoid that state by implementing a very specific lifestyle. That's what this book is about. It's about curing depression, not treating the symptoms. This is coming from someone who's in your shoes. I've been where you've been. I've felt what you have felt. I know exactly what it's like. I know where that desperation comes from when there is no hope and no happiness anywhere that you look. And I know how much weight there can be on your shoulders. I've been right there, and I'm telling you, you can get through it. And this book can help. That's why this book is different.